Welcome to the One Gang Worldwide podcast, your ultimate ride into the world of motorcycles. Visit cyclesworldwide.com where we offer a completely free marketplace for everything motorcycles. Join our One Gang community where you can connect, share info, and swap stories with riders from all over the world. Join for free at cyclesworldwide.com and be a part of the One Gang community right now. On today's episode of the One Gang Worldwide podcast, we're thrilled to have Angie Sandow with us. Angie's not only a passionate motorcyclist, but also a beacon of inspiration for lots of people, overcoming significant personal challenges to excel in riding and advocating for accessibility in motorcycling. In this episode, Angie will share her journey, discuss the modifications she's made to her bike to suit her unique needs, and talk about her role as an advocate for disabled riders. So whether you're looking for inspiration to tackle your own challenges or interested in how motorcycling can be made accessible to everyone, Angie's story is sure to motivate and enlighten. So get ready for a great conversation with the inspirational Angie Sandow right here on the One Gang podcast.
My mom used to say to me, you'll never know who you inspire. And it's not important to know who you inspire, just to realize that you can, that you're able.
One Gang Worldwide podcast, brought to you by Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping. Since 1978, Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping has been the trusted name in transporting motorcycles safely across the country. With custom-designed pallets and air ride trailers, your bike is secure and protected every step of the way. By choosing Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping, you're supporting a dedicated small business that prioritizes quality and customer satisfaction. Ship with a peace of mind, knowing your motorcycle is in expert hands. Visit keyboardmotorcycleshipping.com for more information. Now, let's dive into today's episode.
All right, today on the One Gang Worldwide podcast, we're welcoming Angie Sandow. We are so excited to have you here and looking forward to learning more about you. Thanks for joining us.
What's up, Angie?
Oh, not too much. Thank you so much for having me.
We're excited for sure. If people aren't, Angie's an inspirational speaker, published author, award-winning executive producer. So she's done a lot of things and still continually doing great things. So I guess at this point in time, what we'll do is we'll kind of take us a little bit into where you grew up.
Well, I was born and raised in Montreal, Quebec, in Canada. What you can't see is I was born with a limb difference, which I recently found out is actually called, I'm a congenital amputee, which I never heard that term before.
Wow.
I just call it I'm unique, right? It's like we're all unique,
right.
we're all different, right? So yeah, I grew up in Montreal. My parents were from a totally different generation. My dad was born in 1919 and my mom was born in 1923.
Wow, no kidding.
Yeah, I have a sister that she was born in the late 40s and I was born in the early 60s. So the cool thing about it though is
how old was your mom when she had you?
well, hey, 40.
40.
40.
Okay. Oh, that's not bad.
40.
That's not
She was
bad.
40. So, I mean, growing up with parents in that generation I heard all kinds of music. I was exposed to all kinds of things. I was taught that nothing can ever stop you from doing what you need to do and to work hard, study hard, and
Nice.
save every penny. Right. Yeah. The only thing growing up in Montreal, you had to be a Montreal Canadiens fan. So I was not. I was not a
for
Montreal
you.
Canadiens fan. I played sports that girls didn't do when I was growing up, like football and hockey and everything else. So I was different all around, right?
Nice.
Like girl.
Right. Were you always an outgoing kid, or what was your personality like when you were small?
Well, I was outgoing to a certain extent. I mean, when I was with my parents when I was growing up, everything was fine. But then, when I started going out, like running errands and things, I was a little shy because what I didn't understand was why people were looking at me. And I was looked at,
Right.
pointed at, laughed at. And, we'd go grocery shopping and you'd hear kids saying to their parents, what's wrong with that kid? When I started school, what's wrong with you and all that. So I wasn't accustomed to that when I was with my family. So that kind of caused me to withdraw a little bit. But I found it when you're growing up and you're associating with your peers, they move on very quickly, right? Once you get to know them and they get to know you and the laughter stops and you focus on other things, everybody moves on to the next thing, So it didn't take long to kind of get assimilated, but I always persevered. And so, yeah, I guess even growing up when I was older, people who know me won't believe that I was shy until I was about in my early 30s. They won't
No
believe it,
kidding.
but I was.
Wow.
Still am a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, on stage, I don't know how you do that. The um, so what was that like in your early days, going from that family life where you didn't really have to deal with that outside, I would call it threat, but that feeling of being looked at. What was that like going through? And do you have like strong memories? It sounds like when you're at the grocery store, you remember that kind of thing. When, I guess, how did you grow into that and get kind of develop your own strength and tough skin to get past that?
Well, I guess I was very determined. Both my parents were also very determined. They never knew the word "can't" what it meant. None of us did. And they lived through the depression and things like that. So they were
Right.
used to hardships and having to fight for everything that they got. So for me, it was really an extension of my parents, and I was always encouraged to do whatever I set my mind to. And I loved sports from a very young age. My dad and I used to sit and watch. We used to watch football and hockey together, and racing and things. And then I wanted to play these sports, so that's what sometimes what
Y-
the focus would be was not so much on my hand, but wait a second, you're a girl, you can't play that. So
Yeah.
then I was starting, okay, well, they're not noticing this so much anymore because, yeah, I can pitch and
Right.
catch. I read about a baseball player, and I can't remember his name, and he played for the Yankees, and he had one hand. And a
Jim
friend of
Abbott.
thank you.
Jim Abbott. Abbott.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
friend of mine said, "Have you heard of Jim Abbott?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but I was doing it way before him." I mean, you take the glove off, you throw it, you put the glove back on. I mean, you adapt. You just do things differently. So I guess I just kind of rolled into it. And every time I would get someone saying, you can't play or you can't do this or go there, it would get me angry. I mean, there was a point where I became a bully, and I did bully kids that I felt were picking on me because I just
What
wanted to.
what what age was this?
Well, I got a prosthetic when I was about 5 years old, and that was in kindergarten.
Mhm.
And kids were starting to call me mechanical hand. So the kids that had accepted me were now back to, calling me names. But I mean, when you think back to when you were a kid, a lot of us said things to kids,
Yeah,
myself
yeah, yeah.
included, right? You're growing up, everything's new. But I didn't like being called names. And I started hitting kids with this thing.
Right.
And I remember the principal calling me in, and my mom was there. Mr. Owen, you remember these things. And I
Right.
remember him saying to me, which is something my parents tried to teach me as well. You are never going to be able to control how others see you, how others speak to you, their opinions of you. You can control your own reactions. So you have to work on controlling that. And that really resonated with me, even as a little girl. And the bullying stopped for a few years, but I changed schools. And I didn't have the prosthetic anymore because my parents knew everything that I was able to do all of a sudden, I wasn't able to do anymore. So if you think about it, if you take one of your arms and you bend it and you have one arm straight,
Mhm.
how are you going to tie your shoes? How are you going to do these things? So that's where they thought
Right.
the prosthetic would help me. But the prosthetic was it was a hook. That's all it was. And it couldn't even hold a piece of paper. It was really frustrating. So we
Wow.
got rid of that, but
Yeah,
I
I'm
get
sure.
into a new school and I'm facing the same thing again. Now I'm facing the new kid, not only the new kid and the girl that plays sports that girls aren't supposed to play, but you're different.
Right.
So it started all over again. So yeah, I became a bully again for a little while. And I feel terrible about it. I mean, I terrorize some of the easy kids. This is what bullies traditionally do. You terrorize some of the what you feel are easy targets. Um, but again, I stopped. Oh, and because I had a teacher, Mr. Benjamin, and that's what I mean. You never forget he was from Wales. And he used to call me Sam.
Influential people, right?
Oh
Yeah, he
yeah.
used to call me Sandwich, and he knew I was in the military history and I was in grade 3 or grade 4, and he would encourage my imagination and things, and he just brought out these other things in me, and I stopped bullying again, and
Nice.
it never happened since. So you can get out of this funk.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I still to this day, I that's one of the reasons I speak is to share that you can have these terrible things that maybe happen to you and things that maybe you instilled on other people, but you can change. It's how
It's
you deal with.
amazing. It's amazing that you've been on both sides too. You've
Yeah.
been the one bullied and the one bullying, so you kind of have a perspective from both ends of the spectrum. But I wanted to kind of ask you a question. I know that you do a lot of, you get booked for a lot of functions and in front of large groups, and you've got a few that you've kind of have done in the past called "Don't Judge Me" and "Hey Kid, What's Wrong with You." Can you do us a favor and kind of take us into these speaking sessions in regards to one is what the what it's all about, what type of audiences you're dealing with, can you take us a little bit into each one?
Sure. Well, I speak to anyone that wants to listen. First of all, so I
Right.
kind of call myself a boutique speaker in a sense because it depends on the group that I'm speaking to. I was once told when I was thinking about getting into speaking, someone said, "Ange, you have way too much to talk about. You got to focus on one thing." And I thought, well, but all these different things are chapters in my life which helped to make me who I am today. So, for instance, if I'm talking to a group of motorcycle riders, I will really focus on what got me into riding motorcycles and how my bikes are modified and some of the challenges that I face. When I speak with children, it's usually about, 8 and up. So now you can get into the preteens, the teenagers, and all that. Um,
Sure.
and if they're young, then I'm going to play guitar, for example. Start off, it's more of an interaction. What do you think I
Mm.
can do and what do you think I can't do? And, sometimes,
Oh, cool.
yeah, well, do you think I could play guitar? And you'll hear, no. Do you think I could catch a ball? No. So I'll interact with them, start throwing balls or pick up the guitar and start playing and demonstrating that. And then we'll just get into it's more of a discussion, like a back and forth type of thing. Um, if it's preteens, teenagers, it's a lot about body image because wasn't just born with this. I mean, I think I was born with something called Poland syndrome, which I surfed and I never heard of before, which can be a limb difference and other things that have happened, usually on one side. Well, my right breast never developed. I don't have a pec muscle. My shoulder's smaller and I'm off a little bit with the ribs. So, growing up, what's the focus? It doesn't matter when you're the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, especially now with the TikTok generation and all this, a lot of it's on
Right,
body image.
right, right.
Oh, I mean, I'll really try and talk about
Mhm.
that and, try and emphasize that you're beautiful no matter what your outside is. And no matter, even if you think you look great, there's always somebody out there that's going to be critical. So it's back to that thing about being proud about yourself. I'll speak with, cancer survivors because I'm a breast cancer survivor. So we'll talk about that and the chemotherapy and getting through that. And
Right.
then I'm a senior, so I'll also when I talk to the seniors groups, it's
Mhm.
about,
Mhm.
maybe we don't do the things the way we used to when we were younger, but, if someone tells you you can't wear something and you shouldn't be doing this and you should be sitting reading a book, well, hey, it's all about what we feel is, and try not to look back and look forward. So some of the messages resonate with all groups, but I also try and
Right.
cater it based on the audience that's
Do,
in front
do
of.
you find it more that you're being booked into the kids part a little bit more than others, or is there one that kind of outpowers the other as far as your speaking sessions?
Well, thanks for that question. I'm finding it hardest, which is really concerning to me and disappointing to get into the schools right now. It seems
Really?
like they already have their speakers and who they want and the message that they want to hear. And I mean, I'm all about diversity and inclusion. And I think it's very important. And every time I speak with other groups, for instance, especially seniors groups, they're all saying, or Rotaries, the service clubs, and you got to get into the schools. Oh, I agree with you 100%.
Absolutely.
But it's one of the hardest, things to
That's
do.
unbelievable.
Yeah,
Unbelievable. The
it is
fact
when you
that like what you bring and the things that you've accomplished, which we'll get into later on in the show, and it's such a transitional ages that you because you're eight years old and older, so that this is when they're starting to kind of form themselves as they're getting older, and this is where kind of the kids are the cruelest, because now they know more. So and having a hard time, and that's crazy. That makes me realize how backwards our school systems have been for such a long period of time. And I think you see that in the way that these poor young kids are committing suicide from getting judged on social media and things of that, and people just tearing them down because I don't think they honestly have a true voice, because the only thing they see is they think they see perfection as they're flipping through their phone, and all that
Yep,
stuff is just fake,
yep.
and they don't understand the difference. So to have somebody like you to be able to talk to them about truth and fake, and the school systems aren't accepting this in the way you should. It makes
I
no
I I
sense.
agree with you 100%, 100%. I mean, and when I speak, I know I have kind of like an overview of what I'm going to do, but I'm not scripted. So, just like when I play my music, I mean, I'll watch the audience and see, and I'll gauge their responses and where I think they're going, and I'll kind of, just like riding a motorcycle, do the twists just to make sure I'm
Right.
covering the things that I'm sensing that they want to hear. And I'm very transparent. I mean, I will answer anything. And I will share that one of the coolest things that happened wasn't so much speaking. It was, and that's how I know I can make a difference with the kids one time I was riding, we pulled into a coffee shop, myself and my husband, and we're getting ready to go. And I'm getting my gear on and stuff. And this woman's honking. I turn around and there's a car and there's a little guy in the back. And he's sitting there and he's going like this and he's pointing at his arm. And yeah, he had a limb difference.
Aw.
I went,
Uh-huh.
or like this. And I see the smile. And she said to me, he hasn't smiled in a long time and he loves bikes. So we
Oh,
had this
That's
awesome
cool.
conversation and it's so therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's just, I know I can make a difference. And that's why I do what I
You
do.
are. Yeah, it's not that you are making a difference. I mean, you see it. And we'll get into more of your story as we continue on with this, but it's like there's no way you're not, because you're doing everything in your power to do that. So,
and you do have so much to talk about. And I'm curious, your journey with cancer, with breast cancer, having relatives who were impacted by it as well. So you already had the personal experience. What was that journey like for you? And what do you tell people who are going through it?
Well, when I was in my mid-20s, I told my husband I'm going to get breast cancer. Now, there is no proof to why I felt I was going to get breast cancer, but I was at the time working in an office and I said, I
Huh.
got a computer in front of me and I got radiation coming at me and I got the lights but there's nothing to prove that you know what I mean? This is just how my
right.
head. So when I was 49,
Mhm.
and you self-check, they always talk about self-checking. And the joke would be, I'd say to my husband, why don't you self-check every now and then? So I felt,
I tell my wife I'll check for her all the time.
well, I felt something and I knew right then and there. And, you go for the tests and they tell you to come back in 3 months. And I just knew it was something and they would not do a biopsy until I felt something under my arm, which was about 6 months later. Um, and I went through the whole
Mm.
thing and I got diagnosed and it was February of 2014. So part of me expected it because I thought all those years ago, I'm going to get it. Part of me thought it was funny because,
That's
like I said, I only
crazy.
had one breast that developed, right? So I thought I had a 50-50 shot, but there is
Mm.
tissue on the side that didn't develop. So, and when
Mm.
the surgeon that I met explained, he said to me, well, you can either have a mastectomy or you can have a lumpectomy. And I said, well, why do people want lumpectomies? And he said, well, they like to keep the female form. Now, here's someone that grew up with one breast that developed, and I always had a prosthetic on the right hand side. And I said to him, it just shows the things that come out of your mouth. I said, well, I like sports, so it doesn't matter to me. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. I still don't know what that means, but that's what I said. So I told him, I said, okay, you know what? I'll go for the lumpectomy.
Mm.
And he starts writing stuff down, goes away, comes back. I said, I changed my mind. I'm going to go for the mastectomy. I said, because you know what? Get rid of it. Get and by that time I had an implant on the right side. I said, get rid of that, get the implant out, and I'll start all over again. And things will, we'll go from there. So I always tried to find humor in it. The thing that was difficult for
Right.
me was I like to know what's going on. I always look to the future. So when you get diagnosed from my
That 6 months must have been torture.
yeah, I mean, but my experience with, was also, I wanted to know, am I going to get chemo? What tests am I going to get? When am I going to get the test? When am I going to get surgery? I had all these
Right.
questions. So the waiting for
Sure.
that, was a little difficult, but once the ball starts rolling, I mean, you go. Now I had some tests like a bone scan and they put radioactive dye in you. This is before, surgery, cause they want to make sure it didn't spread. So I
Sure.
saw a sign in the hospital that said, you are now radioactive. Don't, you can cross the border, but you need a letter. So I said to my husband, I want to cross the border. I want to set off the alarms. It's what I wanted to do. And I have a letter, but we never did it. But I'll tell you, I believe there's always a positive. And the positive for me with breast cancer was I met a lot of cool people. I learned a lot of stuff about myself. I met the nicest man I never wanted to meet, which was my oncologist, Dr. Sheldon Fine. He became, he was just always there for me. He was my support. And I made a deal with him. I said, you can't retire. You need to be with me for 10 years. Well, he was with me for 8.5. So it's okay. I'll give him a pass, because he retired early. But it also motivated me to do things that I always said, I'm going to wait for the day. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. Not today. It's not the right time. It's not the right time. So it motivated me to ride a motorcycle and to become an inspirational speaker and to get out of the corporate life and to start doing
So
things that
that's when the major change in your life happened.
yeah,
Was that? So let me ask you this: what came first, the AC/DC tribute band, and learning how to play like Angus Young, or riding a motorcycle?
AC/DC.
Mm.
The AC/DC.
AC/DC, nice.
And the funny thing is, I met my husband. We've been together 40 years, 41 this year.
Wow, 40.
Yeah.
Wow, God bless
And
you both.
thank you. And yeah, thank you. And he's a drummer.
Hmm.
So he bangs on everything. I mean, he bangs on everything. And when I met him, the thing was, okay, you know what? I lived with my parents and so did he. And then, he would bring his drums over to my place. And I said, I'll play what you want. Because I was already playing guitar and I never saw myself as a great lead player. I was more rhythm, but we played Twisted Sister. We both like Rush
Right.
and Judas Priest and all that kind of stuff. So we'd play that stuff. I said, but you know what?
Nice.
I said, you know what, Lloyd, one day we're going to buy a house. And when we buy a house, we're going to have a basement. When we have a basement, we're going to play AC/DC because I love AC/DC. And he goes, yeah, whatever. Well, the time came that we did. And I love playing AC/DC. Angus Young was he was my inspiration because he's a little
Hero.
guy and
Yeah,
he's got
yeah.
small
He's
hands. And I said,
incredible.
if he could do some of the things, I should be able to do it. But what happened is we went out one night to see an AC/DC tribute band, and that was in 2000. And before the tribute band came out, members of AC/DC were there. So Angus and Malcolm Young were there, and Phil Rudd was there, the drummer. And I got to, meet Angus and Malcolm, and Angus actually and Malcolm taught me Thunderstruck that night, like how to play it. Because I said, I
No
know how to play
shit.
it. Yeah, I said,
No
Mm.
shit.
I said,
That's
I see the
killer,
talent.
man.
So if you show it to me, I will be able to play it better. And they did. They did. It was a promo for Stiff Upper Lip. And after that, they were kind enough to show it to me and to just, again, to show you what you say. You meet them, and the first thing my husband says to him is, "You're a short little bastard just like me." And I said, "Don't swear at Angus. Where does that come from?"
Protected Angus.
No,
Good for you. Good for
I'm not,
you. Well,
no, just
Angus is your
no,
guy. I mean, you got to
right,
protect
why?
him.
Yeah, I know, right? So there was a tribute band. They came out, and I'm in the suit because I had a suit like from the time I was like 14 because I loved AC/DC and I had to do everything. So as the band is playing,
Oh
I'm
yeah.
doing my thing, air guitar. And I had people around me in a circle. And I said, you know what, Lloyd? I said, we can form our own tribute band. I said, and I can, use a prosthetic. And that's one of my prosthetics right here.
Okay.
Fortunately, I don't have the pick on here. Actually, this is an old one. Wait a second. This is the one I use now. So it just slips
Okay.
on like that, and the pick is there. So
Okay.
I said,
Yeah. Yeah.
right,
And you got the
right.
picks already set,
Yeah, I
right?
got the picks already in there. And I changed the pick. I take it.
Yeah. So
So, and I thought, if I form an
I was going to ask you if you could go into that
yeah. I mean, the first thing was if I form a band.
for our listeners too. Just to mention for people that are listening, it's essentially it's got two straps on it and kind of a bottom base plate, and then the pick goes into the side of it. There, it kind of protrudes out of the front. That's really cool.
And it's Velcro. So I use electrical tape because I like it really tight. So I tighten it more.
Right. Right.
Nice.
But I
Not coming off when you're sweating and stuff.
exactly, yeah. But I thought if I'm getting looked at with circle of people around me, and I love AC/DC, why don't we form an AC/DC tribute band? And then hopefully people will see how I play, and that
Right.
might inspire them. This is all before the speaking. This is all before
Right.
riding a
Right.
motorcycle. I mean, I got into bikes. I love bikes since I was a kid. But I was always waiting for the day. So we got the band going, and we started playing a lot of charity events as well as paid gigs. And one of the charity events was called Ride for Sight, and it's a motorcycle event. Um, and everybody wanted to take Angus for a ride. And it reawoke my passion with
Mm.
motorcycles, and so yeah, so the band came first.
All right, the band came first. That's
And
cool. So then you battled breast cancer, and if, from what I read, is that's when you kind of started picking up the motorcycles, correct?
yeah, that's when, I mean, I was always a passenger, and I had a moped when I was a kid, and that moped was, in my mind, a motorcycle. I mean, I had the
Yeah, of
leathers.
course.
I had a leather jacket with fringes. I had a
Hmm.
with a
Well,
dark
like
shield. I looked
Pinky Tuscadero.
Yeah, man, I look cool.
Nice.
I look cool. And I realized I was about 14, 15, and I realized, and it was modified, the throttle was moved to the left-hand side, but I was going up, I lived in Montreal, and I'm going up a hill, and the bus behind me, the driver, I could see how impatient he was, and I started pedaling, and my shield is fogging up, swearing. And then this guy passed me on a 10-speed bicycle, and I said, "You're not on a motorcycle."
On a 10-speed bike.
Yeah, that was, but I
That's
was cool,
insane.
right? Yeah.
So
But yeah,
funny.
it was after breast cancer that I said, you know what, it's time to really, let's get the bike, you know, let's get the
So what
bike.
did you do? You obviously you went for your course and did that. Can you take us a little bit into like your first bike, what you needed to do to modify it? Like, what, how did that transition, and what was your first bike?
Sure. Well, and the thing is too, after breast cancer, my hubby got a bike first because I didn't even
Okay,
think about myself riding. I just wanted to ride, and he got a bike,
sure.
and we started on a Yamaha V-Star 650. Right? And I was a
Okay.
passenger, and I rushed him. He wasn't ready to take me as a passenger, and I rushed him, and I took the course, and he did all this stuff. He got, you know, pressured by me. Uh,
All right.
he was stalling the bike all the time because he wasn't ready for a passenger, and I kept pushing him, right? So I got really good at telling the cars behind us, "Don't go because we're not going," and jumping off the bike because he would dump it every so often because he wasn't ready for me. Um, we I decided I wanted to ride. When he was at work one day, and I looked at, he got another bike. He got a 950 Yamaha Tourer, which he still has to this day. And that was in 2016, if I remember correctly. And I saw the bike in the garage. He wasn't home. And I thought, but I can't ride it. I need him. And can't doesn't exist in my vocabulary. So I started surfing the net and everything. And a lot of what I could find was US based. I couldn't find anything in Canada, but
Mhm.
I found amazing things about amputee riders, whether they were
Right.
missing a leg or maybe both legs, missing an arm, missing a hand. It's incredible. And that really inspired me and said, wow, it is possible. So we went to a motorcycle show in 2017. It was more like a manufacturer's type of show. So all the manufacturers were there. I talked to everybody. I talked to all the manufacturers. There's only one that would talk to me seriously, which was Honda. Honda talked to me,
Good for you.
and they spent 2 hours talking to me about what they think they could help me out with. And the bike that they said would be a good starter for me was the Honda Rebel. It was the brand new one, which had the
Hmm.
fat tires. Right, it's the first time they had the bigger tires on it.
Yep.
And they had one there, and they said, "Don't get excited because this bike doesn't go anywhere, but sit on it and and see how you feel." And I loved it.
Right.
Now the thing is, I said, "Well, someone's going to have to train me because I want to go to a riding school." I mean, in Ontario, in Canada here, you don't have to go to a riding school. You can just go to the Ministry of Transportation, and you can take your test, your road test. It's a graduated licensing system, so it's M1, M2, and full M. So M1 is just on a computer. I mean,
Yeah.
you're just answering questions,
Mm.
right? Rules of the road, that type of thing. So
Yeah.
anybody can do that. But I wanted to be taught. Um, so I bought the bike brand new because for me, with riding schools, they provide you with the motorcycles. I wouldn't be able to use their motorcycles because I needed mine modified. So
Right.
I said to Honda, I said to the fellow that I sold it to me, I said, "Listen, what if something happens and I can't find someone to teach me?" He said, "Well, when we sell motorcycles, we sell enjoyment. It's not like we sell cars here. This is enjoyment. If something happens, you'll have no problem. We will refund your money and everything else." I
That's
found
awesome, man.
one school would teach me, only one. No one else wanted to talk to me. And that was a place called Learning Curves. So how I got my bike modified was I picked up the bike from a place called Barrie Honda in Barrie, Ontario. We shipped it over to a place at the time, which was in Angus, Ontario, it's been sold. It was called Mission Cycle, and Todd was my angel. And we brought the bike
Right.
over, and the first thing he said is, "Hey, kiddo, I want you to sit on the bike, and I want to see your position because you're going to be sitting on it a little bit differently than everybody else, and I want to make sure I've got the handlebars the way you need it." So we did risers and things, but he had to move the throttle over to the left-hand side. So the first thing that we did, and he was amazing. He's thinking he already did modifications for a guy that was paralyzed from the chest down. So Todd knew all about doing stuff like this, and he was all about safety. So he thought, do I make you a gas pedal? He said, that would be badass if you had a gas pedal. He said, but he got this thing called a Goldfinger, which is kind of like it's throttle used for ATVs and snowmobiles and whatnot. So he put that on the left-hand side and MacGyvered it. So I would just at the time use my index finger. He took the front brake and transferred it to the left-hand side. He contracted a place to make basically a centrifugal force clutch, which disengaged the engine automatically. So I didn't need a clutch lever and I would still shift. So that was the very first bike, the Honda 3 Rebel, all modified and everything. And I learned in a parking lot because I had to be ready to take the course.
Right.
So I loved that bike. And people were saying, why are you
That's
getting
cool.
a 3? Maybe you should get something more powerful because you're going to run, you're going to find that it's not going to be powerful enough for you as time progresses. And I said, well, what if I don't enjoy it the way I think I will? I don't want to,
No, it's
have much.
Hey guys, the show will be back in 1 minute right after a word from our sponsor.
Hey, One Gang, tired of feeling like your butt's taking more of a beating than your bike on those long rides? Introducing Butt Buffer, the ultimate solution to saddle soreness. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. These cushions are made from medical-grade viscoelastic polymer, scientifically crafted to eliminate pressure points and keep your circulation flowing. No more numb nuts or numb butts. And here's the best part. Butt Buffer cushions are made right here in the US for the last 30 years. From Harleys to Hondas, we've got a cushion to fit your ride perfectly. Plus, with styles ranging from sleek pebble polymer to luxurious sheepskin, there's a butt buffer for every rider's style. Get your butt buffer today at buttbuffer.com. That's buttbuffer.com. Your butt will thank you, and you'll ride longer and happier. We've got your butt covered.
Money
that's
spent.
a smart way to do it. Absolutely. I always tell people, when they're buying bikes, I'm like, what you want to do is you don't want to make a expensive investment right out of the gate and have it being a trophy in your garage the rest of its life. I'm like, get something for a couple of grand, run it around, make sure you're comfortable, make sure you feel you're going to do this, you want to do this. Then you make the investment. That way, if you have to get rid of it, you don't lose anything on it. It's just you're going to sell it, buy it for 2 or 3 grand. You're going to sell it for 2 or 3 grand.
Yeah, I mean, for me though, the insurance was crazy. It was 3,000 Canadian because I was a new rider. And usually you're not riding when you have that M1. I only had the M1. I didn't even have an M2 yet. So I had to get insured and it was very expensive. I said, it's worth every penny. And I took the course. And it didn't take long till I got another bike. So I got a Shadow Aero. Because my
Nice.
promise to myself was if I feel comfortable riding, I've always loved the Shadow and I love the look of it and the style and the feel of it.
Yeah, good
So I
looking.
got a Shadow and I had it modified similar, same thing as the Rebel. But what I found was,
Same guy did the work.
yeah, same guy at that time. And
Man,
that's,
good for
then I
him.
took to another place called Motorcycle Enhancements, which is closer to where I live. And I spoke to him and I said, you know what, when I use the finger throttle, my arm gets sore because there's more torque. It's a heavier bike and everything. So he fabricated a thumb throttle, which is now more similar to what you'll find on an ATV or something like that, right?
Right.
So you push your thumb now. But what I found with that clutch was the bike didn't like it. I had to service that bike every year, because it's got ball bearings and things like that. And if you short shift, you're going to burn it out. So
Correct.
it became a very expensive proposition. And
Right.
then I found a Honda CTX dual clutch. And I found that at Bob Weaver in North Tonawanda, New York. We didn't have
What
them
size
in
was
Canada.
that CTX?
So it's a 700, fuel injected.
700.
Yeah, they had an 1100, but I couldn't find it. So I remember saying to my husband, let's just go down there because I found it advertised. I said, I'm not going to buy anything, but let's just go down there. And I know I'll just look. And it was a naked, and it was black, and I sat on it and I said, "Oh, this is nice." And the dual clutch, you don't have a clutch lever, and it's basically an automatic. If you
That's
want to
right.
ride it in manual, it's got paddle shifters. So the modifications would be even less. So I got on the phone with Motorcycle Enhancements, and the owner, John, answered the phone. It was Saturday, and I said, "I need your help. I'm going to send you pictures. You got to tell me if you could do the throttle and move it over and everything else." And he was kind enough to go back and forth with me, and I bought it. And this thing, I wasn't going to buy it, right? So I bought it, and you had to export it from the States and import it into Canada, which was not a big deal at all. And I had
Right.
that one for a little while.
Nice.
And then I saw that they had one that in 2018 that wasn't a naked, so it was a bit just a touch wider, and it had nice bags, and I could put a back box on it, and that's what I ride today. And the last mod that we made on this one, and actually Milton Power Sports in Milton, Ontario, which is a Honda dealer, what they did for me, I said, I'm tired of the thumb throttle. My fingers are going numb, and I don't like that. And I've had carpal tunnel surgery, and my fingers are still going numb. So they actually did the twist
Sure.
throttle. They moved it from the right to the left. It twists just like yours would, so it twists the right way.
Right.
They had to make the bar a little longer so they could have the cables come out on the left-hand side. So they did that. They moved the front brake. That's all I need. And I've been riding that
That's
thing now
awesome.
since 2018.
Cool.
Yeah,
That's really
I
cool.
love it.
So this whole process, what inspired you to write about this whole thing with going into your book with from chemo to throttle? Was it just the experience and you just knew that it had to be documented?
Well, yeah, partly, but it's the people that I met. And I started up a website. I met this woman as a result of the website. Her name is Diane, dear friend of mine. And she had similar challenges to me with respect to breast cancer. And I remember her saying, "Well, if Ange can
Right.
ride, I can ride." Because she wanted to ride, and she has no limb differences and everything, but she was always nervous about riding. So through her, I started meeting other people, and a lot of it was women too, saying, "I'm not comfortable riding. I'm nervous about riding." I started getting more involved in the motorcycle community, so I started at a motorcycle show in the spring, organizing women in riding exhibit to get women out there. And
That's
then I'd
cool. Yeah.
meet more people. More people would ask me questions. How do you ride? And then I remembered when I was looking to ride, all I could find were things in the United States, which is cool. But if it might have been someone else, maybe they would have been discouraged not finding anything in Canada, and they may have said, "Well, forget it. I can't find anything here." So I thought if I share my experiences, maybe that will help encourage other people to ride. So uh, the first thing was to make a documentary, because I found out about the Motorcycle Film Festival, which I never knew existed in Toronto, Canada. And I thought, you know what, I want to make a film, just a short little thing, documentary about my story. And I met this wonderful gentleman that helped me put it together. It's about 32 minutes long, and it's basically the story, which I just shared about how I got into motorcycling, the mods, and everything else. And that's what the film is about. And I got some really good traction on it. We've shown it at film festivals in the United States and Canada, not
Are
just
you
motorcycle
talking about the tail? Are you
tales
talking
of
about Angie
hits.
Tales of Determination? Yeah. Well, that
Yeah.
that that film also won. Didn't it win a best documentary in 2022?
Yeah, I won Best Documentary and Most Inspirational. It's won a few awards, which is really, really cool. And I still haven't released it to the public. I show it every now and then. Um, but I thought, wow, there's a lot of energy behind this, so maybe I should write a story. A story. It started off as a story, and then a friend of mine,
Right.
Mark the professor, my dear friend who wrote a book, said, "Ange, I'll work with you. Write a book. You got an incredible story." So that's what prompted me to write From Chemo to Throttle, to tell the story, and hopefully that would help me even reach more people, to inspire more people about what's possible, and that we all face challenges in
Cool.
life, you know, but you can get through them.
And it's
Yeah.
basically your life story up until present day, correct?
So present day. Yeah. 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 So it covers everything, and it really goes into more depth about cancer because there's things when you've had cancer, well, my experience, you can tell jokes that other people might not feel comfortable telling. You can say things and laugh at things that other people might not find it's the
Right.
thing. It's not politically correct. Well, we can do it all because we've been there. And me, I don't mind what And I've learned through all my experiences, I think most people don't mean harm when they say things. I mean, when I got cancer, it was like, oh, I know someone that had breast cancer and they died. Now you can go, oh, that was a terrible
Right.
thing to say, but I don't
Yeah.
think they meant it badly. They didn't. They don't know what to say, but they want to say something. So that's what I mean. You
Right.
learn things, and these are the types of things that I share because I think sometimes we have to take a step back when people say things and not jump all over that person and say, "Oh, they're trying to upset me. They're offending me." No, maybe they don't know. They're not comfortable expressing themselves. They're trying to tiptoe through the weeds and say the right things. Maybe sometimes we as receivers have to take a step back and think maybe the person didn't mean any harm. So why don't we just take a step
Right.
back, take a deep breath, and have a
Yeah.
conversation? Right? You know?
Ange, let me ask you a
Right.
question. How long did it take to make that documentary? And you think you could possibly like share some cool tidbits that transpired in the filming because this is a whole different new role for you. So I mean,
Yeah.
take us a little bit into that.
Well, we actually started it just before. Well, the concept came up just before COVID. In 2020, in around March 2020, February 2020. And I met with that
Oh wow.
gentleman, Chris
Right
Arden.
at it.
Yeah, Chris Arden. And Chris told me this. Actually, I found this story out when Chris was doing an interview. We were in a Zoom discussion about the film, and he didn't tell me this in advance. But when someone arranged for us to meet, just to have a conversation about, the concept, and at that time, he knew he was going to say no to me, and he never told me that. I heard it in
Huh.
but then yeah, right? And then when he heard the story, he said, I just couldn't say no. So, we talked
Oh
about
wow.
it and Chris said, "Listen, I'm gonna film it and, you tell me what you want in it, but I'm not gonna let you see it until it's finished." And it was a fantastic experience. I mean, because I said, I wanna have part of the movie where I'm riding with people, and I put a call out to anybody that wanted to ride with me. We did a ride from my house, which is in, it's not far from Niagara Falls, Ontario, and we went down to a store called, Tons of Bike Gear in St. Anne, Ontario, and those folks are amazing, Lil and Ed, and we went down there, and I put a call out for riders. I got over 30 riders that wanted to ride with us to go down.
Wow. Nice.
Meant so much to me,
Nice.
the support and everything. But yeah, we talked about music and there was parts that were really emotional for me because we did film part of it at a Learning Curves campus. They have a variety of campuses where they do teach people how to ride. And I got really emotional and I'm not a crier, but I actually started crying when I saw the bikes in the background and people learning. And I said, you know what? There's one thing I have they can never take away from me, and that's my license. They can never take that away
That's
from
right.
me, and I'm pretty proud of that
Yeah.
accomplishment. But it was a really cool, fun experience, and I think it's a pretty
When are
cool.
you gonna release that?
I don't know.
Come on,
I
man, you
don't
gotta release
know.
that.
Yeah,
It's been 2 years.
I know. Yeah, yeah, I shouldn't I? Maybe we can do an
You
exclusive.
got to.
I know.
That would be
Yeah,
killer, man. I mean,
right?
Let's do it.
let's do
Hmm.
Let's
it
do
for
an
sure.
exclusive. Let's do an exclusive. I think it's a pretty cool film, and I tell people watch it till the end because at the very end, there's a part I didn't know that I was being filmed, and my husband's in it, and
Oh
you
cool.
know, there was things that transpired. So I'll leave it to your imagination.
All right, all right. Well, we're waiting for the release. So you
Cliffhanger.
now you're on the hook to release it. So
You're
there's
right.
no you're recorded. We have actual footage
Yes,
and video of you saying you will release it.
I will. I will.
And you've been able to travel all kinds of fun places as you're invited to speak.
Yeah.
And I'm curious if any of those events really stand out to you.
Well, one of the events, the first one that I spoke with was at Americade in Lake George, New York, motorcycle events that I've spoken at, which last year was the first time I spoke there. I was actually supposed to speak there earlier, but COVID looked after that. Um, and that was a
Okay.
really cool experience. Lake George, New York, if you're not familiar with it, is in the Adirondacks, and the
I
roads are
love Lake George, New York.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
Beautiful
God,
out there.
roads and Lake Placid and all the things around. I mean, it's just such an awesome area. Growing up in Montreal, we used to go there quite a bit. Um, but that was cool sharing my story, um, meeting people. And again, I find it's similar to when I was playing guitar in the AC/DC band. You share a story, a lot of people come up to you and say, you know what, I have something to share with you. And you start creating these stories and it's
Yep.
it's amazing. And my mom used to say to me, you'll never know who you inspire. And it's not important to know who you inspire, just to realize that you can, that you're able. And I get inspired every day. So that's my whole story, basically about growing up, getting into the bikes and not letting anything deter you from your dreams. And I'll be talking about my mods. So the mods from my first bike right up until my current bike, and hopefully I'll be able to have my motorcycle there. But really, from looking at my motorcycle, you'd never know that it's modified. So there's that one. A real other.
Are you riding there or trailering?
Oh no, we're riding. We're riding
Good, good.
everywhere
Sure,
we
don't
go.
trailer.
No,
I
sir.
mean, yeah, trailers are no good.
No, sir. I I've been places on that motorcycle that I've never gone in a car. And I'll give you an example. Prince Edward Island. We went to a thing called Atlanticade. Sorry, Atlanticade. That was a few years ago. It's in Prince Edward Island, which is, if you haven't been to the Maritimes, beautiful. Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and then there's Newfoundland. I mean, these are just beautiful, beautiful areas surrounded by water and nice, nice roads. We went there. The weather was lousy, but I mean, it doesn't matter. You're on the motorcycle, and so I'm just trying to share that. There's places that I've been, I would never ever go in a car. I mean, we went down to Ocean City, Maryland. We're going to do the Blue Ridge Parkway this year. It's no, don't trailer.
Nice.
I got to ride. And another place I've never been to, which I'll be speaking there as well, and I'm blessed. It's called Athena, and it's a women's motorcycle event, and it's from July 31st to August 3rd. It's in Athens, Ohio. And for those that don't
Okay.
know, Athens, Ohio, they have what's called the Windy Nine, and it's 9 different routes of awesome roads. And if you reach out to Athens, Ohio, they have maps that you can get. There's one route that's called the Triple Nickel, and I know someone that wrote it, and he said, I don't know if you should do it, Ange. It's really technical. And because there's the one thing I hate is gravel.
Oh,
I don't like riding gravel, but
yeah, but as
yeah,
soon as he said, "I don't know if you should do it," is
that's a
is
deal.
just a whole word for you that it's like, okay, I'm going to do it. So
Yeah, he said it's really technical and everything. And he knows I don't like S turns too much. Like I don't, people say go to the tail of the dragon. Well, it doesn't matter about, riding with one hand. I just don't like doing constant tight turns. Like I like
yeah,
long,
it's hard. It's a
ease
lot.
and
It's a
breathe.
lot. Of
That's what
course,
I
of
enjoy,
course.
right? But I'm going to do it. He said it's technical, and I'm doing it. So I'm going to do the triple nickel. So I look forward
Yeah,
to that.
good.
But yeah, it's so those are, that's going to be really cool, meeting a lot of women. But Americade is
Yeah.
yeah, if you can get out to Lake George, get there.
All right, that's good. No, it's absolutely beautiful. I've been there a couple of times when I used to live in Boston. We were only
Yeah.
like a couple of hours away, so we used to go
Yeah,
up there all the time in the summertime. It's so beautiful up there. Well, hey,
gorgeous.
listen, let's get into this part of it. Obviously your story comes from resilience, courage, determination, proving people, it's not necessarily proving people wrong. It's more of proving yourself right. It's not any kind of revenge thing. It's more about like, if you're saying I can't do it, I'm going to prove to myself that I can. So what kind of advice would you give others out there that have been judged, bullied, whispered about, that possibly kind of are listening to this, but they kind of feel down on themselves and really don't have any strong support system around it? What would you tell somebody listening now?
It's okay to feel down as long as you pick yourself up. We all get down. I'm an inspirational speaker, and I have dark days and I have dark minutes. I still ask myself, why did I get breast cancer every so often? That's not feeling sorry for yourself. So it's okay. We have a variety of emotions. However, there comes a time that you have to look at yourself and say, I got to shut them out. I got to shut out the negativity, and I got to focus on what I want to do, and try and even if you don't have positive role models or mentors, you can find them. Now, one thing I was once told is role models, well, they need to look like you in order to be a role model. And I say, yeah, right. I have role models. Bobby Clark was a role model for me. He has diabetes. He wasn't supposed to play hockey. He became the captain of the Philadelphia Flyers, right? And I mean, look what he's achieved. Paul Stanley from Kiss was born with a deformed ear. And yet, whether you like Kiss or not, look what he accomplished. Joan
Right.
Jett was told she can't sing. she's ugly and everything else. And she went through some dark days too, but she beat everybody. And what I do is every time I hear negativity, something that you kind of alluded to earlier, if you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it. And it's okay to do it with limitations. I don't play guitar like Angus Young. I never will. I'll never be able to do those solos. And that's okay. I'm not going to beat myself up over it. Is it because I play with one hand? No, it's because I'm not going to take the time to sit down there 25 hours a day working.
In
I
practice,
mean,
right.
well, and even then, I still don't think I could sound like Angus, but I think it's okay to recognize we all have limitations, but try to shut out the darkness, because no matter what you achieve, no matter what you do, there's always going to be somebody that's pointing at you and saying you're not good enough. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. I think you gotta be determined, and no, it's not easy. I think it's also good to find others that have similar values as you and objectives. For example, you want to ride a motorcycle, try and meet some riders. There's a lot of riding clubs out there. There's a lot of events, even if you don't know how to ride, just to talk to people, to meet people. Um, so surf the net, and just like what I did. It's amazing what's out there. Yes, you're going to find negativity. Just scroll on, keep going, just get something positive. And when you find something, grab it and hold on to it and don't let it go. That's really my message. I mean, don't let anybody
awesome.
deter you from your pursuit of success, because you will be successful.
Awesome.
That's powerful. You've got justridin.com without the G, RIDIN.
Yes.
And I see your socials, your books, your swag. You got some sweet gear. You got all kinds of cool stuff there. And I'm curious if you've got one particular channel that you're more active on. Like, are you more active on Instagram, or do you just kind of skip the socials and advise people to go to the website?
Oh no, thank you for asking that. I don't we wish we had more time in a day? I am so bad. I
Right.
am on TikTok, just because I know people go on TikTok. Instagram, I have a Facebook page. I have a website. I haven't updated it in a while, which I have to do. I would say between TikTok and Instagram and Facebook are where I'm most active. I always promise my followers I'm going to get more active, and then something happens, and because I have speaking engagements that I go to.
Huh.
I'm a second officer in my riding club, which is the Southern Cruisers Riding Club. So of course, busy with that. There's just so much, and then I'm riding. The weather's nice, and now I'm going to ride. And then when we're rehearsing, I mean, time it just slips
Right,
away,
right.
But yeah, I think, between TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook are my most active. Yeah.
And what's the gig with your glove?
I love my glove. So,
Yeah. Tell us about the
so
glove.
my right hand, well, it gets cold very easily. Like, even in the summer, it gets cold very easily. The skin is kind of thin. So my husband suggested to put a sock on it. Yeah. So that's why yeah, funny. Well, I did. I start, because when you're writing, people do, the two fingers, I would call it the two finger salute,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. The, the
Well,
wave,
me,
yeah.
I'm putting my right hand up, so I'm not really saying anything bad, because it might look like I'm saying something,
Yeah.
but
Your fist
Yeah,
bumping.
yeah, that's how I'm going. Still do the two fingers when I'm holding on, but yeah. So I've got a sock that I got a thermal sock, and I'll slip that on. But then my hand still gets cold. So, why didn't I think of this? I have
With the sock.
just put the leather glove on, and if I need to put the sock underneath, um,
Right.
well, that's what I use. But then the other thing is, I take longer to get ready than other people, because I do everything myself. So I got to tie the boots if it's raining, or I think it's going to be wet,
Right.
or we're going on a long trip. I wear military boots, which a friend of mine suggested. Why don't you just get military boots, Angie? They're waterproof and they're warm, and that's true.
That's
So I do
right.
that. Um, and then the jacket and all this, and the helmet and stuff. And sometimes I'll wear chaps, although not as much as I used to. Now, besides the glove, people said, okay, so you got the glove on, I got the jacket on and everything. Now comes the time you got to go to the washer, right? So people say, well, why is Angie in there for so long? What is she doing in there?
Right, of
Well,
course, of
Angie
course.
doesn't take her helmet off, because if I take my helmet off, it's going to take me forever. So of course, imagine you can't, because you have a full face. And so now I'm doing everything by feel. I'm not taking the jacket off, because I already got the glove and the sock and everything else. Everything feels great. So it takes me a while longer because
Right,
I
right.
feel, right? Yeah, but that's the secret. So if you've got a limb difference or something, you might want to think of using a glove, which maybe you already did, and it just took me a little longer to catch up. But yeah,
All right, cool. All right, kiddo, you ready to get into the speed round questions? Because
Speed round.
God, yeah, let's go. I don't know how speedy I'll be, but I'll try.
no right or wrong answer. Just have fun.
Okay.
All right, 2 minutes on the clock. First question. What's your favorite motorcycle you've ever owned or ridden?
My Honda Rebel.
If you could time travel, what era would you go to and why?
Middle Ages. Either the Middle Ages, because I love military history and I would love to see how life was back then. And I'd also like to go back to the Roman times, back in Caesar's day. Just because I read about it and I study it a lot and I would just love to live it just for a little bit,
Yep.
That's cool. There's some show out there called Outlander that my wife and her sisters are obsessed with.
A lot of people are
And
obsessed with
it's
it.
the concept of time traveling to medieval times. My wife won't even go camping. And
Have you watched it?
she's thinking, it makes her think, yeah, it's interesting. It's not my cup of tea or whatever, but yeah, she digs it. And it's funny to hear her little comments. There'll be some scene and I'll walk into the house and hear her saying, like, I could never. So funny. It's interesting how it's been such a heavy trend. Okay, next question. What's the best road trip you've ever taken on the bike?
Prince Edward Island. Prince Edward Island, because I'd never been there,
Nice.
and it's just, wow, red sand. So I'll just say red sand and a lot of lighthouses.
Heard they got some good seafood too.
They do. Yes, they do.
cool.
Yeah.
Kind of famous for it. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be? Or somebody in the present even.
Yeah. Henrik Lundqvist.
Henrik Lundqvist.
First, I thought I'd go
He's
back
He's a
in
Rangers
time.
fan, by the way,
Yeah.
people.
At first, if it has to be back in time,
That's
it'd be
funny.
Caesar. Like, if we went back in time,
Hey,
it's
he's got a
Caesar.
special right now on Netflix. I want
I
to
watched
watch. It's about like
Open Heart.
Oh, you seen it? Yeah,
Yes.
with one heart with his heart procedure.
It may- I saw it the day it came out. Come on now. Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah,
he's
I
another-
know. I figured you
Oh,
would.
Yeah. So dinner with Henrik Lundqvist, if you could put that out there, Hank, if you're listening, huge fan.
Make it happen.
Make it happen.
Hank.
Pencil her in.
Yeah.
We won't tell your wife, Hank.
What's the best book you've read recently?
Son of Hamas.
Son of Hamas.
Interesting.
Son of Hamas. Yeah. I just read that and
What is that about?
yeah, it's written by a gentleman that is actually the son of one of the founders of Hamas. And he actually became an Israeli spy. And it just brings you into that world a bit. And I found it very interesting.
Yeah, it sounds it.
Not exactly a
That's
fun,
interesting.
happy read, but a very educational.
No,
type-
but it's that's
Sure.
that stuff that the battles
Space-
between those. It's like
Yeah.
crazy.
Sounds fascinating. Well, on a lighter note, if you could instantly learn any skill, what would it be?
Oh my goodness. God, this is supposed
Wow,
to be
Ben's
quick,
got the
right?
hard questions out today, man. He's like,
Well,
"Angie, I'm gonna give Angie a run for her money, man. Holy smokes, kid.
You got 2 minutes.
If
Well,
not, you got to jam live for us.
oh,
Yeah.
my guitars here. Any skill. Oh my goodness. Helping. I guess just help Hutton, press his t-shirts. He's got a t-shirt business, and I don't know the first thing about pressing shirts, so he can
Okay.
teach me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Screen printing and all that stuff is really an interesting skill.
There-
I'm on board with
Okay.
there. All right, here's a fun one. What's the weirdest food you've ever tried?
Oysters. I know a lot of people like oysters, but I'm not really that kind of gal. So when it
Weird to you.
was weird
That's
to
cool.
me, it was
Yeah.
very weird to me, and somebody actually filmed me eating it. So there you go.
All right, if you could travel anywhere in the world right now, where would you go?
Rome.
Rome, nice.
Again, back to the history.
Very-
Yeah, I go with
Their history.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you been there before?
that's why I'd like to go. And I have some
Either dying
friends.
to go.
Yeah, I have some friends that have been there. They grew up there too, and everything. And you got to go. You got to go. It's one of those. Yeah, I know. I'd love to go.
I went when I was young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, let's go. Put it on the
Put it on the
list.
list.
Okay, what's your favorite motorcycle movie of all time
My favorite motorcycle movie.
or documentary?
Oh my. Um, oh my. I can't even think of the name of it. It's the comedy with Tim Allen and John Travolta and Hogs. What was it called?
Wild
Marion-
Hogs.
Oh, Hogs.
Hogs.
Wild
Oh,
Hogs.
Wild
yeah.
Hogs,
That's a
yeah.
great
Nice.
movie. I
That
love
was
that
our
movie.
Yeah.
I never miss the opportunity to watch it if it's on TV. I think it's a great movie.
Yeah, it's funny.
Okay. Besides AC/DC, what's the one band that you would love to get up and jam with?
Well, I did sing with Stone Temple Pilots, which is one of my favorite bands, but
You did.
I
Really?
did.
SCP.
Stone
is
Temple Pilots, Scott Weiland. But really, it would be
Yeah.
Rammstein.
Rammstein. What?
Oh yeah, I'd love to get
Man,
up there.
you're taking it
Awesome.
back now. Nice.
Or Jones Act.
That song's going to be in my head for 2 weeks. Joan Jett. I saw Joan Jett like a decade ago. That was a great show.
Yeah, I love.
So got it. Here's a fun one. Do you have any hidden talents?
Oh my god. Hidden talents? Yeah.
Yeah, if no, then one of your fun talents.
Well,
Do you-
sure isn't my memory because that's long gone. Yeah.
It's all that heavy metal music, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I don't know. I
It's all right. We can skip that one.
don't know. You know
Yeah,
what? The
sure.
only thing I think when people talk to me is they think I'm talented because I could just ride a motorcycle, but I just see it as something that I do. But I don't know. I don't.
That's good.
Oh, no, good one. I gotta ask my hubby that question to see what he thinks. See if he can answer that question.
There you go. Good idea. Yeah. Here's another maybe difficult one. What's one of your favorite childhood memories?
Childhood
kinda-
memories.
Or one of my favorite childhood memories. Telling my mother, because I find it funny, that I will never forget, I'll never dye my hair, and I'll never have an ache or pain. And the reason that's one of my favorite memories is because I didn't understand the look he gave me at the time, but I get it now.
Right.
But that I just remember,
That's funny.
you're like 5 years old and you think you know everything, right? But
Yeah.
that yeah,
Yeah, right.
it just it was a very
If only it was true.
right, yeah. But that and just being hanging out with my
Mhm.
family, it's just
All right. What's one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
don't become a bully, and you can do it.
Simple and solid.
Yep.
Okay. Besides One Gang Worldwide, what's your favorite either podcast or like social media channel to follow along with?
Well, I listen to Don Cherry quite a bit because since he was kicked I'm watching him again,
For people who don't know who Don Cherry is, he's a hockey voice of. He is the baddest dude around. I love him because one, he's a conservative guy, and two, he doesn't care what people think of him. So that's a
Great.
great one. I love that. Hey,
It's just
listen, Ben had a question on here that he kind of skipped over, but I got to go into it just because I love heavy metal. What's your favorite AC/DC song to play?
Up to my neck in you. So I'm
Oh, nice.
my neck in you. Yeah, so I'm a Bon Scott. I love the stuff with Brian Johnson, but I had a
Yeah.
pen pal back in the day in the 70s. She sent me a cassette of AC/DC. This was like 1974. Nobody even knew who they were. And I just got turned on by them.
Cassette. What's
I
that?
know, right? I know. And Power Power is my favorite album, and that's my favorite song to play.
Great album. I'm gonna honestly I honestly believe that AC/DC needs to be put on the same pedestal as Led Zeppelin. The reason being is yes, Led Zeppelin is probably the greatest rock band of all time in regards to anybody who's a hard rock listener, because they feel that. But in all reality, man, if you go back to the early AC/DC, they came before Judas Priest, they came before Iron Maiden, I mean, like, badass band. I am too. I'm a huge AC/DC guy. I just love that 80s, 70s, 60s, late 60s, 70s, and 80s hard rock. I mean, That's the greatest music of all time.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Well, you made it, Angie. You survived the speed round and the podcast.
So yeah,
We're
yeah.
happy to have you.
You
This
you
is
can
really
you
fun.
can check
Thank you
that
for
off
joining.
your list of things accomplished. Thank God, out of my life.
Yeah.
Next. That's awesome, man. Hey, Ange, thanks for coming on, man, sharing your story. It was awesome to get to know you, obviously, but on top of that, you're an amazing individual. I love your attitude and the way you do things, and you are an inspiration. So I'm hoping that the school systems out by your neck of the woods start to open in their doors for you to be able to sit down and talk to these kids, because a lot of these kids get all their information from the wrong outlets and not from the real outlets. So keep up the fight, keep up the work, and ride safe, knees in the breeze, and always keep that smile. All right, and we'll have you on, get that movie published so we can see it, and we'll have you on maybe towards the end of the year or for the upcoming first year and talk about more of the documentary part.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
All right, awesome. All right, awesome.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you. You too.